Noel Hill and Tony Lennon came up from Clare to stay with me on the first of many visits. It was long before they made their albums and became well known. But the first thing that Noel Hill said to me on that first trip up, he said, "Do you know a man called Willie McSherry?" I said, "I do." I said, "I know him well. I know his sons." And he says, "I want to meet him. I need to meet him." So this is a young Noel Hill who will go on to become one of the greatest players in the tradition ever. Coming from Nissy Casey, a little townland in West Coast, on the west of Clare, had heard about Willie McSherry and he wanted to meet Willie McSherry. So on his first visit up that weekend, I don't even know if it telephones at the time, I don't know how we communicated then. But anyway, I made my way out to McSherry House, introduced Willie and Noel, and was set for the afternoon. The two boys talked for a while, but then played music and played magic music. It's my great pleasure on behalf of the musicians who knew Willie before we hand over to his family to say what a major impact he made on a whole generation of us during his short life. He was truly inspirational, truly kind, truly generous, and he had a great rhythm, and you'll hear about his rhythm and music. So we're very, very fortunate to have had him. And with that, I'll hand you over to Tommy McSherry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, I'm sure my dad would have been absolutely gobsmacked to think so many people would turn up 45 years after his death for a tribute. And I think it's a credit, a testament, I suppose, to his popularity and his personality, his nature. So we'll start with this particular poster, which of course you may have seen on Facebook and other things, advertising. And it's a very good likeness. I'm sure you will say I chose this particular photograph because of the duo accordion, of course, for traditional music. He did play another accordion, but this particular one, of course, which is he's sitting here, the polo soprano, he played at traditional sessions. And looking at this, of course, I think this is a memory that all of us would have had of him with his jacket, shirt and tie, hair very neat and tidy, and very clean and proper. And that was Daddy. He always turned himself out very well, considering he worked in a coal yard and would have arrived home on his bicycle covered in black coal dust, and within an hour or so he would have been spruced up like this on the way out to play. And it's amazing just looking at him in that way. The poster says memories and celebration. Memories of the part music, particularly Irish music, played in Dad's life. And it is certainly the way we remember him. Right, William Joseph McSherry was born on the 18th of April 1920, the youngest of 4 boys and 2 girls. He was reared in the Four Towns, the townland of, I'll try to get this right, Beg, right, or Bug is what in Irish, yeah. In Glen, near Points Pass, a place where the McSherry name goes back several centuries. He lost both parents by the age of 9. I think he lost his mother at the age of 3. Margaret would confirm that. He moved around, obviously, a little bit. I do know that he was in Edinburgh at one stage, where his brother Charlie was obviously working or visiting. I don't know why they went there, looking for work, I presume. And then we have him later. Yes. Now, this is a gem. Found a photograph, and we took this from it. This is the young Willie McSherry in the 1940s. He was, as you can see, very dapper, and he had the style of the day. He had the brill cream, which of course that lasted right up into the 60s. He would have used the brill cream, and shirt, tie, jacket. Considering they came from, I mean, very meagre times, and of course they dressed up for the band. And Margaret, my cousin is here, is lucky enough to have remembered him. She knew him when he was only in his early 20s, and she remembers them practicing, which astounded me. he was actually practicing then, way back in the 1940s, practicing with George O'Hare, who ended up playing with him right up until the 70s, at different stages in different bands. But it amazed me that George O'Hare was actually there at the time, practicing with him. And it's no doubt that they also played in local Gaelies at that period in time, probably Glen Hall, possibly, in other places. But it's amazing just looking at him there, that he obviously was a very proficient accordion player even at this stage. Because we have, in the next one, this is an old photograph taken from the bottom of a biscuit tin that Mum kept many, many years, and it was taken out many, many times, and even my own daughter used to open the biscuit tin and look at the photographs. And this one was there, unfortunately got badly torn, but it is unique because it has Dad and his brother Pat, and we're glad to have two of his sons here tonight from Navan. And Pat played the accordion as well. I do remember him playing a few tunes at the Mully. But so even then at Kilmessan, and this was called the Hillbillies of Kilmessan. Kilmessan is near Navan, Trim, Navan, that area. And unfortunately I never got talking to him about any of this. Never even, unless you saw the photograph, you wouldn't even have known. I did know he had lived with Pat for a while, possibly with work, trying to get a bit of work. He lived down, whether it was in Navan itself at that time, I don't know. Did they always live in Navan?
No, it would be
Kilmessan itself, so that's why this is in Kilmessan. Don't know these other people, I don't know if you would even recognise them, but it shows you that he was already playing in a band at that very young age. And it's, of course, when it comes to it, learning tunes. So, this was in the money. Right. Leap forward. 20 years of leap forward. Right. In the meantime, Dad had got married, moved 3 times, and there was another time he moved as well. In various houses that were very dilapidated, no electric, no running water, right up into the mid-60s. But music was still there, and this shows you the famous John Murphy from Silverbridge. Killy Band, I'm sure some of you would remember the John Murphy Killy Band. And Dad, of course, was a great friend and played with him very regularly. Auntie B's in the middle, Bridget Keeley, or Bridget Reel, as she was, my mum's sister, pretending to be able to play the fiddle. She couldn't, but this was John's fiddle. John was a great fiddler. In fact, he played the fiddle more sometimes, I think, than the accordion. But Dad really enjoyed the music, as you know, the crack, and you see that he's having a good old go at Auntie B there for pretending at least looking the part. And it's a lovely photograph. So, you have, Dad used to play in the John Murphy Keeley Band at times, yeah? And the Vincent Lowe Keeley Band, now there's a name from the past. I think he came from Carrickcrumple or somewhere. Vincent Lowe Keeley Band, would have played with them, headed off in the middle of the night somewhere to play. I heard them even mention one time they went to Galway, and I can't imagine, my goodness. That was some drive, and then Dad would have had to come home maybe 2 or 3 in the morning, get up the next morning for work, to cycle into Newry. Of course, we didn't have a car at those days, so it was tough. And he also did a wee bit of teaching, and Danny Johnson, my McSherry Johnson, came to the house way back in those days to learn a few tunes. Danny taught him, and Danny still plays a few tunes. In fact, Danny is the custodian of this accordion now. That's the famous accordion that Danny played. And he has fond memories, he's told me in interviews that I've done and talked to him. Very fond memories of his Uncle Willie, teaching him a few tunes. And then listening to him playing
his whole house, and the whole family would have listened to him playing Gaeláras on the radio air, and we used to sit glued to the wireless, no TV of course, sit glued to the wireless when Daddy was playing on Gaeláras. So it was a big occasion, as you can imagine, because no TV, it's just the radio, and the radio was just like the TV would be now for kids. So the right around this time, well, the Cultus was organised in Newry, first, I think 61, I think it might be, and a few people, like of course Daddy was involved. You had Eddie Ruddy, Paddy Rafferty, Jack O'Driscoll, Father Tom McConville would have been one of the main instigators of it, and the famous, or some people might say infamous, Frank Sweeney. Those who came from Newry would have remembered Frank Sweeney, the chemist from Newry, and he was I've written it down here, he was a larger than life character. King of the Fleadh was one of his titles. In a recent, actually it was in here, saw a video of him at Thurles talking in an interview with an ITV reporter, and there he was, full of life, talking away, and of course in his usual style. What his fiddle playing lacked in technique was made up for by his verve and enthusiasm. He could script a few tunes, but he was a great character, and characters like that keep the thing alive. And sometimes he even arrived at the house in his car, and he would have dragged these open reel tapes up our little pathway, and the tapes might have got stuck in the door of the car, and he would still walk on, and he would arrive in and say, Willie, he would have recorded these in the Fleadh, and he had them, and Daddy had an open reel machine. So there he was, had to play these tapes that he'd recorded, and of course Daddy was enthralled. Daddy couldn't afford to go to Fleadhs in those days, didn't have a car anyway. So these, and then Daddy would have played these tunes, obviously. He would have learnt them off the tape. That's the way he did. He had an insatiable appetite for tunes, which explains his vast repertoire. I mean, he was learning tunes from he was obviously a teenager. He even got me to read and play music for him at times, because he bought, and I have it here, the O'Neill's 1001 tunes. And if he heard a tune, got the name of it, he'd look at it and say, it's in there, you play it, and I would play it on the piano. And that's how he learned some tunes even of me. So I couldn't remember them, of course, I had played them before. So that's the way it was. He was a busy man in many ways, but he loved his music. And then we have a nice photograph, and those who are eagle-eyed among you will notice that this is where we got the poster photograph from. And there you are, Cultus members. They always ended up in the Ardmore if there was some sort of a function on. They didn't go into pubs in those days. Pubs were taboo. So playing Irish music in those days, the Cultus would not have been seen dead in a pub. So there were dens of iniquity, they said. So there you go. My dad was a teetotaler, so there was no drink. But anyway, they would have ended up in the Ardmore Hotel. Paddy Rafferty, of course, and Dermot Mackin, I believe, and our own man here, he's here, John Shields. How he got in there, he must have gate crashed or something. I don't think, John, you were in the Cultus. I don't think you were a member of the Cultus. They dragged you to the hotel. Yeah, well, it was good. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I said, that's John. He's brilliant. Okay, now, so in the end, let's see what we've got next. Now, this is very different. Some people might recognise the man on the piano. Charlie Smith. That's it. Well, Charlie Smith, some people would know, became very famous for putting on productions of all sorts of musicals, Newry and all that. But way back then, 60s, he approached Daddy and myself, I'm stuck down here in the corner, to help out with these local these are all local girls from around Glen, Balbriggs Glen, and Bar, and he was putting on a variety show of some sort, I remember bits and pieces. Charlie asked Daddy and myself to help out. I could read music, so I was playing the piano. Charlie played on the black notes. That's what he did. I don't know why he played on the black notes. Winnie Atwell, if you remember way back in the day, she played on the black notes. But so he needed somebody who could play regular piano, and Daddy, of course, could learn anything, so he just learned these music hall pieces. And we travelled. We went to, I remember, a horrendous bus journey in winter to Pomeroy, and to play at this. It wasn't a score, obviously, it's some sort of a talent competition, and we ended up getting snowballed out of it. But that's the way they were in those days. Didn't like opposition from Armagh or down. Right, so now, and that leads me on. He was playing a different accordion here. You can see that, and 3-row, and this is it. Daddy moved. Well, he didn't move on to the 3-row. He bought a 3-row, kept 2-row, because he was playing in different types of venues, and he needed an instrument where he could get a bit more volume, of course, but also play a variety of different styles. And in the end, he got the pride and joy, of course, the Shan Marino. And the Shan Marino was, in his day, I suppose, most expensive accordion of its era. Jimmy Shand, he was a great fan of Jimmy Shand, this famous Scottish Gaelic band leader. He listened to a lot of his music, and he could play it exactly the same as Jimmy Shand, same style on the 3-row, and he ended up going for the best, and that's what he got, the best. And he usually did go for the best. And there were times, of course, where he would have had to look around to see if he could get a bargain, so that was it. And he did at times, of course, deal in accordions. I'll get on with it. Okay. So Dad learned most of his tunes, his continental tunes, from Jackie Hurst. Yeah. And you see here, we have 2 big posters of Jackie Hurst Gaelic Band on either side, one on either side. And we have, there you see. Now, unfortunately, Daddy's not in any of these, but I presume that Daddy would have played on occasions where we needed somebody with a wider knowledge of traditional music. Because Jackie could play a good range of music, but he would have had the sort of knowledge of traditional music that Daddy had. Or in case, and sometimes I reckon that he stood in for him. And this is one of them. That is indeed Daddy on the left. Then in the middle, I see something's happened with the way this is. But you have Daddy on the left, you have May Trainer, the famous George O'Hara in the middle. Yeah. Jerry Burns, who is then, that's the names are on the wrong people. And you have Fintan Callum on the right hand side. So he did play with the International Gaelic Band. I think he did a Gaelic House with it as well. And so he learnt most of them. And he was, as you can imagine, Jackie did turn up at our house to play. I always remember it so clearly because I count myself fortunate that I actually accompanied him. And the continental music that he could play, I used to say he could play more on his left hand than I could play on my right hand. He was a genius on the accordion, and there's a lovely poster at the back of the room which was done out for right behind you. Jackie Hurst, the young wizard or something like that. And it's taken from a picture from photograph of him when he was only about 13, 14 in Belfast playing the accordion. He was a wizard. Anyway, again, Daddy and him were very fond of each other, and I suppose Daddy looked after him a lot as well, because as you knew, Jackie at times needed a bit of looking after. In fact, Daddy and George at one stage bought an accordion for him, because he was playing his own accordion all over the show. He even would have carried it on his back in the rain down to O'Meath. Someone left. Amazing to think Jackie Hurst could carry an accordion there. And of course his own accordion was, he was playing on the stumps. The actual buttons were missing, and so he would have played on the stumps. But Daddy and George got together and bought him a good accordion, a decent accordion, which they kept only for occasions that he was going to be playing at a function. And they gave it to him then when he arrived, and he played it during the function. Then they took it back off him again and kept it under lock and key. But he had his own old one to play when he wanted to, of course. Yeah, but that, as I say, he did learn a lot from Jackie, and I would say he played a trimmed down version of the Continental tunes, and they were fine, they were great, he had natural ability. So then, this one here, this is the Tempos, a rare photograph. I don't even know if there's another one. And Rory O'Connor, yes, Gabriel McGuigan, and my dad. And they played for, I don't know how long, I don't know when they were formed in the 60s and played up into the, Tony might know, they played into the 70s, I presume. Yeah.
I bought that guitar, Rory.
And you bought the guitar. There you go. So, they played everywhere. And there's a lot of people you meet, and there are some here tonight, that I met at the door and said that Daddy, the Tempos, played at their wedding. And he played at lots of weddings. He played in all sorts of places. He did even play in Orange Halls, as far as I know. And because a little story he told one time, he was playing in this Orange Hall, or hall it was, and at the end of the night, somebody said, "Oh, we'll have the anthem," and Gabriel leant over to Daddy and said quite loudly, "Which one?" So that was it. So he, it's a good story, and I think it was true. So he was fixing accordions as well, but of course playing for Daddy was at this stage, in a way of having an outlet for his music, and also for earning a few bob, because he wasn't fit to work anymore. He was crippled with arthritis, and whatever sick pay or dole money or whatever he was getting, playing out, he would have made a bit of extra cash, and then he also fixed accordions. He would have, from all over, people would have come with these accordions for him to fix, tune, and I even have a wee note here saying, it's rumoured, and I think it's true, he even put a reed in Joe Burke's accordion once. It actually broke down when he was playing somewhere around here. Hilltown. And he needed a reed, so Daddy put a reed in Joe Burke's accordion. And Daddy, although Joe Burke and Daddy were completely opposites when it came to personality, very opposite, he was brilliant. He admired his playing. Like Joe Burke would have been the person to imitate if you wanted to play a two accordion, a traditional thing. His style and his, of course, we were used to the more northern style of playing, and then you, like a Joe Burke and people like that, got us used to the idea of listening to a different style. And Daddy even tuned this accordion here on the table, tuned it to Burke tuning. Now that means he went through not every reed, but most of the reeds, and retuned them so that it would sound like Joe Burke's accordion. Now that was a particular time, and it's interesting how it has evolved, because nowadays that's the tuning they have now in accordions for traditional music is very similar. It's called either Irish tuning or dry tuning is the new word. And what they do is they get rid of the vibrato, get rid of the musette tone, and they want the straight tone. And if you want to think of an example, you have Sharon Shannon. If you listen to her tone, the accordion, it's almost like a mouth organ, or it's almost like a concertina. So that is it wasn't quite the same, but he certainly went towards the Burke style of tuning, and he loved it. And of course, it has only developed from there. So this here is a photograph I picked not only because I'm in it, it's a rare occasion. It's the only photograph that I would have playing with Daddy anywhere, because I didn't play in public with him. I have only been maybe at one session, I remember, playing, because I did start to play the piano accordion later on when I finished university, and I did go out once to Forkhill, but I wasn't around a lot. But I played the little keyboard, I think that's what it was. It must have been a wedding. Do you remember, Eileen? Whose wedding? Must have been one of our weddings. And the other reason I picked it is because George O'Hare's.
Probably 9, I think it's 9.
Oh, there you go, Brady's wedding. Excellent. There you go. Now, I will not say how long ago it was. It's 71. So my dates, I just put in decades down because I didn't know. But that's very good. George, George is there again. George is a great man. He pops up all over the place. And he played drums, he played piano. I just wonder what he played. George played
Accordion, I think.
a big piano accordion. He played this, yeah. So I thought maybe he played the drums with that. But he is around, and he's played in the Gaeláras Mhic Ardghail band, and he's played in all these bands with Daddy at various stages in different places. So don't know where he ended up, but that was it. He came from the Glen, road between Sheep Bridge and Bars, big farmhouse there, almost opposite Glen Hall. In fact, that's where he came from. Well, this is moving on, isn't it? And you do, of course, know that he was taken from us prematurely in 1979. He was only 58. Fortunately, in his last years, he had broken the taboo of going into pubs to play Irish music. He'd been playing in pubs, obviously, with tempos and all that sort of thing. But he got into the swing of it, and Mum used to blame me for getting him into Mark's Bar in Dundalk. Because I used to go to it, never played in it, obviously, but then when he heard there was a good session on it, he did venture up one Saturday night, and I think Mummy said he kept going up on Saturday nights to Mark's Bar. And there was a great session of Mark McLaughlin's, everybody knows Mark McLaughlin's. And Dad, of course, would have been very welcome with his row of orange juices. And no wonder his stomach was bad, because if he drank all those pure orange juices, it would have cut the lining out. He'd better drink a pint of Guinness, I think. But anyway, he really enjoyed that. And he went to sessions in the, of course, Welcome Inn, Forkhill, which would have been perhaps his favourite place to go. And a lot of tributes were made about it. Mark's Dundalk ship, Warm Point, of course. And he, despite his arthritis, he managed to go to a few fla's. And there's a story I'm going to tell, which Tony told me the other day, literally the other day, which he found from a man who's down at the back here, Sean Flanagan. Well, if somebody else had told me this, other than Sean Flanagan, I wouldn't have believed them. But Sean, I would believe. So it seems in one of these flaws, I don't know where, Ennis, don't know whether Sean and him went together to the flaw, whatever, they were there. And Daddy, with his very bad legs, I remember he walked like his knees were arced like that. Severe arthritis. And so he carried a little small accordion at this stage. And he must have been playing around the different sessions in the flaw. And he got very tired and he couldn't walk. And this is something, I love a picture of this. In my mind, it's just mind-boggling. Sean Flanagan carried him on his back. Now, can you believe that Daddy was so keen to get around Ennis that he allowed someone to carry him on his back? That is a mind-boggling image. But it is a true indication of he loved music, and he was at his happiest, and the tributes are given to show that he was at his happiest playing music, with people playing music. He generally wasn't a man to show his emotion. No sentimentality, much. He came from a generation, of course, that didn't have much to be sentimental about. I say they didn't have the luxury of being sentimental. They just had to get on with it, and whatever he had to deal with, he dealt with very stoically. But it's just, I love that image stays in my head of my father being carried up the street in Ennis on Sean Flanagan's back. And I'm sure there's some people who thought they were two drunks. Unbelievable. But it's a lovely story, And I believe you should. I do believe. So, this is a glowing tribute to Willie McSherry. This appeared in the newspapers, in a newspaper. And I have bits of it here. we go. It appeared shortly after his death and reflected the high regard held for him by not only his local community but by many all over the country. And I'll quote from it. The Down County Board of Cultus, Kiltoria Erin, representing Ards, Downpatrick, Kilkee, Newcastle, Newry and Warrenpoint, paid glowing tributes to our musical tradition, to Willie McSherry, and the contribution he made to the music. Willie was known as a musician who could raise a stirring session and communicate in his playing his love for music, which carried him throughout his later years of increasing painful incapacity with a happy resignation. It was during this time that he won the senior county title of the first Down Fleadh, an honour he retained until his death. His death will be felt most deeply in his own Newry branch, where his quick wit and his infectious laughter and his clever puns enlivened many a solemn meeting. As a session player who could lead the music without respite for hours, dredging up from memory an endless and ever-changing succession of tunes, he cannot be replaced. And it's true, he had an enormous repertoire. I mean, anybody who played with him, Tommy played with him, Sean played with Shawnee, and others in a session, and there was never any gap allowed. He didn't like idle talk. So if there was a gap, he just got stuck into another tune. That was it, and it just kept going on and on. And he was his repertoire was built up over many years, as you could say. And this trophy was presented. Officials of the Ring of Gullion, Kiltoria Erin, pictured with Willie McSherry Memorial Trophy, which will be presented to the most promising young musician on the button keyed accordion, under 16, at the Fleadh in Fort Hill. So, and that cup is still around. Unfortunately, I heard recently it isn't being presented anymore, and I certainly would like to get my hands on it, even if it was to be kept here in the archives. And it shows you the tributes that were made to him just reflect the regard people had for Danny. I didn't think it would be proper to finish without referring to Mum, because they do say behind every great man is a strong woman, and really, while Dad was out working as a coal man or lorry driver or travelling near or far to play his music, Mum was taking care of all things domestic, and that's a euphemism. A monumental task considering the circumstances. There were 9 of us, and we didn't have much, so it was amazing. I never remember being hungry, which is amazing. We didn't have much materially, but we were never hungry. So I feel it is only fitting that she should share in this tribute. And I think we should end up with a round of applause. For both of them. One word for those who are interested. Mum was a reel from Silverbridge, Carnally. Some people will know that. And of course, they got married in the mid-40s. So we'll leave it at that. Now we will have the celebration. That's the memories finished. We'll have the celebration. Maybe Tommy here.